Good afternoon. It's my pleasure and honor to introduce today's speaker, Christos Papadimitriou. Christos is one of the Renaissance men or Renaissance people in computer science. He got his PhD actually at Princeton in 1976, and his advisor was Ken Stieglitz. And after that, he did a quick tour of all the top universities in the country and also abroad, and has been a professor at many, including MIT, Berkeley, Stanford, UCSD, and others, and now Columbia, of course. He's applied the insights from computational complexity and theory of algorithms on many fields, including optimization, databases, control theory, robotics, artificial intelligence, then economics and game theory, and internet applications, and most recently, he's thinking about the mysteries of the brain. He is a member of the National Academy of Sciences and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences and the National Academy of Engineering. And among his many prizes, I'll mention the Knuth Prize, the Gödel Prize, and the von Neumann Medal. Please welcome Christos Papadimitriou. I think we are all in for a big treat today.
Thank you. Hello everybody, and I'm delighted to be here and to be speaking to you, coming back to virtually to my alma mater, I want to start stating the obvious that what is happening now is nothing short of miraculous. I mean, if you think about it, what happens is that I'm creating waves, air waves in my space, and these are transferred to your space through another miracle I'm not going to get into. And then your auditory cortex makes them words, and then the real miracle happens. I mean, so what happens is in this part of your brain that I'm showing you, neurons get busy and take these words and create a sentence and meaning out of them, and then process them and manage them. And if I'm lucky, you will remember them for the rest of your life. Okay, so and it's how on earth can this happen? Okay, so this is what I'm going to tell you. This my take on this amazing problem is what I'm going to talk about. Let me just tickle you with a very interesting experiment. Okay, so 5 years ago they did this. I mean, they presented to subjects a tape with single syllable words said in at 4 hertz for every second, and as a result, sort of, they recorded from the brains of these individuals. That's actually happened in 5-6 languages, probably hundreds, if not thousands, of subjects. And in the end, they got this Fourier peak, which is very easy to explain. Nothing, but that's a control. Okay, what they did next is a very clever version. Okay, they repeated the same thing, except that for every 4 words, single syllable again, they made sense. Okay, and guess what happened? Okay, they had 3 peaks. Okay, the 4 we understand. How about 1? 1 means that some parts of the brain, once every second, they did something, and this something cannot be anything else but construct a sentence. And twice every second, another part of the brain constructed a phrase. Okay, so I believe that what really happened is this. Okay, so and this is amazing. Okay, so Chomsky has been telling us that we are creating trees in our brain, but we 5 years ago we were able to get some evidence of that. And here's a question for you: how are these three representations created, okay? And notice they must be created in about dozen spikes per step. Why a dozen? Because neuron spikes are the so-called gamma rhythm is about 50 hertz, and language is about 4 hertz, essentially, especially this fragment of language, simple syllable for word sentences. Okay, here is another experiment that opened my eyes. Different area, so the ball hit the track hit the ball. They found through deep learning that different areas of the superior temporal gyrus, STG, responded to track in the two sentences, okay? So it looks like the brain has separate area for object, separate area for subject. And in fact, the track, the track was the first area responded to that sentence, which means that the brain is looking for the deep object, okay? So never mind the passive voice maneuver, track is the object in this sentence, okay? So this is another remarkable finding. Another remarkable finding is that they found that the completion of phrases and especially of sentences activates parts of Broca's area. And this is what I call the language organ, what people call the language organ. Broca's area and Wernicke's area, we've known for 150 years that they're implicated in language. Now we understand that Broca's area is about syntax, structure, hierarchy, and Wernicke's area is about word use in language. And the lexicon seems to live in the medial temporal lobe, a huge warehouse of memories in our brain, and it looks like it's, another thing that is worth noting is that there are these dense web of fibers of very powerful synaptic connections that are evolutionarily new, okay, did not exist in the chimp, have appeared the last 6 million years between connecting these areas. I'm showing here what connects the green area with the Wernicke's area and Broca's area, but there are also similar fibers connecting the lexicon with Wernicke's area. Okay, so let's forget about this now. Let's talk about the big problem. Okay, so how does the mind emerge from the brain? Okay, these are the important textbooks in both experimental neuroscience lower right and the cognitive neuroscience upper left, and Mind the Gap. Okay, so there is they are very far apart. Okay, both in scale, in methodology, in mindset, and so on. Okay, so this was noted. This is Richard Axel. He's my hero in this business. He received the Nobel Prize in 2006 for his work on the molecular and neural basis of olfaction. But 2 years ago, and so, as I was hip deep into this problem, he said this: we do not have a logic for the transformation of neural activity into thought. I view discerning this logic as the most important future direction of neuroscience. And I'll tell you, at that moment, I felt that I was blessed by the Pope, okay? Because as I'm going to tell you, this is what I've been thinking. Me and my friends have been thinking about that time. So let's put it in a different way. We all believe that there is computation happening in the brain. Why I believe that? Frankly, the only reason is that if computation does happen in the brain, then my chances of understanding ever the brain suddenly disappear. Okay, so I have to assume that computation happens in the brain. And the question is, what is the right level? And people assert, and they're right, that computation happens in molecules. Definitely computation happens in spiky neurons and synapses, and there are people, more and more people, who tell you that the real computation happens in the dendrites, not in the soma, but in the dendrite of the neuron. And then on the other end, there are the cognitive scientists who basically, they do computation in the following sense, that they make an experiment, and then they tell us you see, it's as if the brain was executing the following program. So, I mean, there is computational metaphors and formalisms at that level, at the cognitive level. And there is a gap here. And here is my proposal that the right level to bridge this gap and to translate neural activity into thought are the assemblies of neurons. Okay, so as assemblies. Okay, so assemblies is not something that I came up with, or sort of there is a consensus that are huge. That basically this is how representation happens in the brain. In the 1980s, we used to call it the grandmother cell. Okay, there was a myth that there is a cell in everybody's brain such that when this neuron fires, we remember of our grandmother. Okay, so in the 90s we wised up and we called this Jennifer Aniston cells. Okay, because basically we did experiment. They found experimentally that you show the subjects a couple of hundred pictures of famous people, you record from a few dozen neurons, and voila, you get a match. Okay, so in this case, Jennifer Aniston, I mean, you do a back of the envelope calculation, and you realize that it could not be one cell, because then you can't be so lucky. Okay, so that there must be, I don't know, 10, 50,000 cells that represent Jennifer Aniston. And these are called assemblies. And assemblies are not new. They were conjectured. They were hypothesized by Donald Hebb in his book 52 years ago. And they have been sought relentlessly by neuroscientists for more than half a century, and who were seeing mirages and statistically then discredited sort of observations of assemblies, until new technology beyond any doubt in the beginning of the 21st century in Busaki's group, then at Rutgers, now at NYU, they identified assemblies. And now sort of, we see them, we create them, we fire them, we play with them, and so on. Okay, so it's an established fact. In fact, Yuri Buzaki, who sort of, one of the great researchers in this area, calls them in his latest popular book, assemblies are the alphabet of the brain. Okay, so and what is an assembly or ensemble? It's the following. It's a large and densely interconnected set of excitatory neurons in the brain area. So it's a mouthful. Large, I mean 10, 20, 30, 50,000 neurons. That's what people think. Densely interconnected. Okay, already that's a challenge for computer scientists. How can you have in a random graph a set that is densely interconnected? Densely, I mean it has maybe 10 times the expected connectivity of other cells. Okay, so this is impossible. This is a very hard problem. Okay, how does the brain can solve it? Okay, and I'm going to tell you about that. In a brain whose firing in some pattern is tantamount to our thinking of a particular memory, idea, concept, person, name, word, episode, etc. Okay, so this is what the assembly. This is sort of the basis of what I'm going to tell you. And in a paper which we published about half a year ago, we articulated the assembly hypothesis, which basically states the following: that there is an intermediate level of brave computation, call it assembly calculus. It is implicated in higher cognitive functions, especially of humans. This is the intended application, such as reasoning, planning, language, storytelling, math, science, self-biography, autobiography, music, and so on. And assemblies of neurons are its basic representation, its data type. Okay. And what are the operations? The operations are projection. I'm going to explain them all to you. Association, merge, bind or reciprocal projection, plus some control commands that make it a real programming language. So you can write real programs in it, okay? Read, fire, inhibit, and disinhibit, okay? And that's it. That's the assembly calculus. And let me start by describing the assembly, what it means to project an assembly to another assembly. This is actually how assemblies are created. And then we'll go through the other technical details, even the mathematical model. Okay, so imagine, let's assume for now that there is an assembly. Okay, there is the question of how was the first assembly created. Okay, but let's postpone this. The answer is in the hippocampus from projection from the visual cortex or sensory cortex. But in any event, you suppose you have an assembly in a brain area on the left, and there is another brain area on the right, and there is synaptic connectivity from left to right. Okay, and now this assembly fires. The neurons in this assembly, 50,000 neurons fire, and what happens is that a lot of synaptic input is absorbed by the area on the right. And imagine that out of these, the ones that got the most synaptic input fire, and they form a temporary assembly, let's call it the blue assembly. And of course, now they fire again together because this assembly will keep firing for a dozen times. And now the plot thickens because you have synaptic input from left to right. This is strengthened because of plasticity, because of Hebbian plasticity, because these synapses now are a little stronger. And there is also recurrent synapses from within this area, within the area on the right. And as a result, the assembly will move a little, will become the red assembly. Okay, but now we'll continue, there will be a green assembly and so on. And what we're saying, does this process converge after a dozen or so steps? And is the result densely connected? And in fact, more questions. Because it's densely connected, the new assembly is going to be stable. And in fact, stable in the following additional sense, that if you fire the first assembly again, anytime in the future, it's going to respond, it's going to fire, okay? So they are also intimately connected with the assembly that created it, and so on. The question is, yes, but what's the math model, okay? So what I'm going to tell you now is the math model of the brain, which is not a very common thing that you find in talks, okay? So so here is what is our model. A brain. So incidentally, you can find online a simulator of this. Okay, so and to work on it, you have your first command, obligatory command, is load brain. Okay, which is a fun thing to type, especially if it's the first thing to do early in the morning. Okay, so. Each region contains the same number of neurons. The same number is an optional simplification. And because of inhibition, okay, inhibition means that not everything can fire, only K of this fire, that's called selection, okay? And some pairs of areas are connected by directed random graphs, okay? The red arrows, and all are recurrently connected by GNP graphs, by random graphs of the Erdős-Rényi variety, sort of completely independent edges, and so on. Okay, so neurons fire in discrete steps. That's a very useful, the very convenient assumption that is also very hard to justify, but we'll take it. The K neurons in each area with the highest input are selected to fire, okay? This is called random projection followed by CAP, RPNC. It's an important primitive, both for our view of the brain, but I believe also for computation in the brain and computation in general. For example, it models inhibition, excitation, equilibrium in the brain, which is sort of something that would take differential equations and other stuff to model exactly, but I think it's modeled, I believe it's a great primitive for computer science in general, in the following sense. If you do RPNC on a deep net instead of ReLU, you get more robust learning. Okay, adversarial attacks have a harder time getting you. So that's so RPNC is very interesting, and sort of and I believe that in some it's a good abstraction of what happens in the brain and what gives the brain robustness. Connections between areas can be inhibited, or so these red arrows can be on and off. Okay, and there is plasticity. If neuron I in the same or different area is connected to J, I fires, and the next step J fires, the weight of IJ is multiplied by 1 plus beta. Okay, where beta, think of beta as 10%. And there are more things like why isn't this exploding exponentially, and so on. Okay, so at a slower scale, homeostasis happens and things like that. Okay, so this is essentially our mathematical model. All right. And the main parameters, I mean, think of n as a few million, k tens of 10,000, the probability of connection, let's say 1 in 1,000 or something like that, and plasticity about 10%. And main ideas is randomness, selection, and plasticity. If you think about it, these are the three main forces of life. Okay, and the basic operation is random projection and cap. Okay, so I know that this question is in everybody's mind. Is this model realistic? Okay, so I'll level with you. Okay, discrete time steps are unrealistic, but they are not distortive. Okay, because we have also done simulations with asynchronous, with neurorealistic, with models, sort of model neurons, asynchronous and all, and we see the same behaviors. The random projection and cap operation is stylized, but I believe very natural, and it's an extremely simplifying way to model EI balance, excitatory inhibitory balance. Assemblies and plasticity. So here is something that I'm confessing. When I show this to neuroscientists, I hear a yes, I believe that plasticity exists and assemblies exist, but I have been thinking of them in a different scale, sort of hours or minutes perhaps, not at 4 hertz. But I mean, there is, it's just, there is no reason why they cannot work faster. Okay, so and that we can figure out in our simulations. So, all said, I believe that as formal models of the brain go, this is quite realistic. Okay, so so I present it to professional neuroscientists, and they don't immediately scream at me. I mean, if that tells you something. Okay, so what am I targeting this model at? Okay, and the answer is the association cortex. What's the association cortex? Association cortex is the white stuff in this picture. Okay, the association cortex is everything except for the sensory cortex and the motion cortex. The motion cortex. All right, and the point is that originally it was something like 10% of the brain of mammals, but for us it's more than 95% of the brain. Okay, and still experimental neuroscience focuses on the rest of the brain, so on sensory, and so association cortex is where the rich life of ideas and concepts and words and so on happens. Okay, so this is what we're trying to model with this simplified mathematical model. Okay, so we talked about the association cortex. Let me tell you about the association operation of two assemblies. So imagine that we have two assemblies on the left, call them stimuli. Why? Because let's suppose that they are closer to the sensory cortex, okay? And they have produced through projection the two assemblies on the right. And now imagine that these assemblies fire together, okay? It turns out that the assemblies on the right will fire together, of course, in response, but something more profound will happen. These two assemblies will come together, okay? That they are going to change neurons, change support in such a way that they intersect more, presumably to reflect the co-occurrence that they noticed, okay? And this is something that has been observed. I mean, let me tell you, it's a famous experiment, also recent. They recorded from, let's say, one neuron from one patient. There were many patients, many neurons, but let's focus on one patient, one neuron. And this was the Eiffel Tower neuron, okay? So every time the patient saw the Eiffel Tower, this neuron fired. So other famous sites, famous people, nothing. They saw the Eiffel Tower, and then they did the following clever thing. They Photoshop Obama in front of the Eiffel Tower. And of course, dutifully, the neuron is the Eiffel Tower neuron, so of course it fired. It continued to fire when it sees the Eiffel Tower it's by itself. It doesn't respond to other things. But to Obama, you want to guess? The neuron fires. Okay? So this means, can you believe this? I mean, the neuron fires when it sees Obama. Let me see if I can do this. See? And this means that this neurons was one of the, we think something like about 10% of the Eiffel Tower neurons that moved to the Obama assembly, okay? And these experimenters were lucky enough to catch it, okay? So, so this is how association happens in the brain. And so assemblies in the brain, they are sort of random subjects, so they overlap randomly. Because of the numbers, they overlap extremely lightly, maybe to half a dozen neurons. But they also overlap more seriously, let's say to 10% of their support, as a result of association operations to a code affinities like co-occurrence, shared attributes, statistical similarities, and so on. And also, they reflect overlap preserved through projection, you see, because if you have two assemblies that overlap in an area and you project them in another area, it turns out, and you can prove that and you can see it experimentally, that the overlap is preserved, okay? And such overlaps may enable, so you have essentially a web of associations, and such overlaps may enable phenomena like associative recall, or possibly other more sophisticated modes of randomized computation. And this, I believe, is an interesting thing to explore, and we are planning to explore it. That's wide open. So what I want to impress on you is the following, that assembly operations are real, okay? By this, I mean the following, that they correspond to behaviors of assemblies that have been observed in experiments, and or are strongly suggested by experiments, like merge. And they can provably be compiled down to the activity of neurons and synapses, okay, through the mathematical proofs and simulations in our model and simulations in systems of neurorealistic spiking neurons, okay? So for these reasons, I'm claiming that, that the assembly calculus is sort of real, and that's it's, here it is again. And how powerful is the system? I knew you would ask this question. It can perform arbitrary, under suitable assumptions, can perform arbitrary square root of n space computations. And if you think that what is square root of n space is, it is, let's say, 1,000 parallel steps, okay? And in 100 parallel steps, you can do everything your brain can, okay? So, so that's a very rich computational system. And there is a merge of assemblies is something that has not unequivocally been observed in experiment, but would explain experiments and would please linguists, some linguists. Okay, so so it's part of our, we know it happens, we know it's realistic, it happens in simulations and improves. And it's by far the most complicated operation. It requires the synchrony of 5 areas, and basically the existing assemblies on the left fire. These make the 2 assemblies in the middle to fire, and after enough such firings, a new assembly is formed in the area on the right, which has very strong back and forth connectivity with assemblies in the middle. And this is what enables you to start building trees and hierarchies. Okay, so so because the new node can be the internal node of a tree. Okay. Okay, and of course this brings us back to the left hemisphere and language. Okay, does the question comes up? Does it need enhanced hardware? This is the huge fiber that joins Broca's area and Wernicke's area. Is this where merge happens? Okay, do we need it to do merge? Okay, so the neuroscientists I know, including Richard Axel, ask me, why do you want to study language? Okay, in some sense, it's the hardest thing that any brain has ever done. Okay, so why don't you wait until you understand the brain and then we'll study language? And the question is that's a huge opportunity cost, because language is a last-minute adaptation. It came about 3,000 generations ago. Okay, it's just 1% of the split from the chimpanzee. Our brain had completely evolved. Language evolved to exploit the brain's strengths. So it's an invaluable mirror of the brain. And of course, I showed you the experiments. So let me show you, for starters. Okay, so we had this in our paper. On our PNAS paper a year ago. How does language generation can happen through the assembly calculus? Okay, and here is imagine that how do you start a sentence? Okay, that's the most basic operation in language. You see something or you imagine something, and you want to put it in words to create a sentence out of this. Okay, so how do you do it? You look for the verb, okay, and you project it to Wernicke's area. You look at the object and subject. All of this can be parallelized, and then you can merge to create a sentence. Okay, so and then of course you have to articulate it, which means start from the top and go down to the bottom, and depending on the particular language, you do this in the right order. Okay, so and in fact we have worked on SV orders in languages and so on. Okay, so but now I want to tell you something new that happened. Okay, so how about comprehension? Okay, something that comprehension came much later than generation. Okay, and is it really a reverse engineering on generation? So online parsing seems much more complicated than generation and must solve myriads of problems like ambiguity, polysemy, backtracking, recursion, grammaticality, and so on. Okay, so this is a prelude to tell you that we have written a parser of English written in the assembly calculus. Okay, so basically we decided we read a lot, and we decided what could be a plausible architecture for language comprehension. We assume that there are brain areas and fibers dedicated to this, that they can be inhibited, disinhibited individually, that there is a lexicon area which contains assemblies for words, and we implemented one of 2 rival architectures that seem to exist in the literature, the one that seemed more plausible to us. And this is the architecture. Okay, so that you have the lexicon on the left, and on the right, and Wernicke's area, if you wish, or syntactic areas on the left, and there are fibers connecting all of them. And if you wish, this is the brain part that I told you, that I showed you before. Okay, so let me tell you, I mean, I'm not going to hide my excitement about this project. Okay, so basically, as I told you, brain areas and fibers, they can be inhibited, disinhibited individually. In other words, to assume that these brain areas and these fibers, not legs, but I mean the other areas and fibers, they can be inhibited and disinhibited individually. Okay, that the legs area contains an assembly for each word. Okay, and each word, okay, this is important. Each word assembly, each one of your 20,000 sets of cells that encode words in your left brain, if you are right-handed, has an action set. Okay, in other words, it comes with inhibit, disinhibit commands for these areas and fibers. Okay, by this we mean that these 20,000 neurons, let's say, have among them trigger neurons for inhibitory, disinhibitory populations of neurons that will carry out these commands. And this action set encodes its part of speech, its syntactic role. Okay. When a word assembly fires, why? Because it is input from the other systems of the speech of the language system. We are only looking at the parser, and we assume the parser takes a sequence of words that constitute a sentence. Its action set is executed. Okay, because the firing of the assembly has the effect of also firing the trigger cells that trigger the inhibition, disinhibition mechanisms that carry out its action set. And if you wish, sort of, to contemplate and sort of, see how this can get you close to lofty stuff, the sum total of word action set is the grammar of the language. Okay, something like the grammar. And it's written in extension of the assembly calculus, where we have assemblies for actions, with actions. So, in the lexicon, that's, of course, we need that. And we also have a project star operation. It's new, and it generalizes merge slightly. And notice, this means that the parser is implemented exclusively through the spiking of neurons. Okay, the only operations that this parser does is neurons spiking, nothing else. After processing a sentence, the parser leaves behind a retrievable trail of side effects, which is the parse. And if you are in NLP, that's sort of like a dependency tree, not quite, but close enough. And the prototype is running, and the paper is submitted, and that's joint work with Mike Collins, NLP giant at Columbia and Google, and Dan Mitropolsky, third-year graduate student, advised by two of us. Okay, what does it do? It parses simple sentences such as this one. The young couple in the next house saw the old little white car of the main suspect quite clearly. Okay, so I'm bragging, of course, right? But it parses this. Speed, it's about 20-25 spikes per word, okay, which is translated very close to the speed with which we speak and listen. More features can be added easily. For example, if this sentence was the young couple living in the next house, that would confuse our parser. But this can be fixed by adding another area for clause and handling this. So that's not a problem. But there are features, of course, that will take much more work. And this is recursion, for example. By the way, there is recursion because you see, I say the old little white car. Okay, that's recursion. Okay, basically there is a rule that says that a noun can be preceded by 0 or more adjectives. Okay, compounding. But this recursion is the easy recursion. Okay, so and we have implemented it. There is a harder recursion of sentence embedding, which requires something akin to activation records and the real stack, recursion stack, we have ideas, but we have not implemented. Polysemy and backtracking, I mean, sort of, you know, I told you that that every word has action sets that tell you, is it a transitive verb, an intransitive verb, or a noun, okay? And if you think about it, the word rock in English is all three, okay? And so there is polysemy. And this means that in a real parser, words are going to have a distribution of action sets. And how do they choose between distribution? I believe that they will, you know, that this can be done. We believe that this can be done in good time if you have a classifier that looks at some look ahead words and some look back words and classifies the current word according to this information. You need backtracking. You need many more details to have a really performing parser. We also have a simple Russian parser. Okay, Russian is a very different language from English because it does not have a fixed word order, subject, verb, object. The Russian parser has to be completely different, has different areas, has different action sets, has different, you know, every word has an accusative and a dative and a nominative form and so on. Okay, so but it runs, so you know it's much more simplistic than the English parser. So you know, just wanted to prove this point, but it runs. And I mean, you know, just to show you sort of, you know, what kind of sort of new ghosts you meet when you do such an experiment. Sort of, you know, I mean, Russian kids and English kids, they start with the same brain exactly. Okay, so how come the Russian kids end with a Russian parser, and the English kids can, you know, end with an English parser? I mean, you know, is this the neural basis of language? The neural basis of language is a phrase that linguists have been using for ages with sort of, you know, mutually understood awe. What I'm telling you is that a simple experiment can bring you really in touch. Sort of, you know, now you are humbled by the beast itself, not by mirages or shadows of the beast. Okay. So in any event, the study of the brain is the most fascinating and the most difficult thing I've ever done. I believe that assemblies and operations may be one possible productive path to computation in the brain. Are they the seat of Axel's logic? Sort of, you know, time will tell. How do assemblies learn and predict? Wonderful question. We are working on it, Santos Vempala and I. How can one test, verify, falsify the assembly hypothesis through experiments? We have an NSF project where we collaborate with cognitive neuroscientists, experimental cognitive neuroscientists, to design and execute experiments that will find traces of the assembly hypothesis in the human brain. I told you about our parser experiment and how it brings you close to depth very early. Okay, so these are my collaborators, and I want to thank them and thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Christos, for that amazing talk. There are a couple of questions. You can look in the Q&A box, or should I read them out? If you're reading them, please read them out. So
stop sharing
I can read them out for the recording.
Please read them out because I'm pressing.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Okay. So the first one is from an anonymous attendee. Does the parser have learned parameters? If so, how were they learned?
So this is our plan. We haven't done it yet. It does not have learned parameters, you know, except for tuning the parameters so that it works, you know, the parameters of our, yes, it has learned parameters, but not the learned parameters your question is about. So, I mean, we have adjusted the parameters of our model so that it works best with for the parser. But yes, I mean, my last, how do you handle ambiguity in language, which is the hardest problem, the plan is to have a classifier that is being learned, okay? And of course, I mean, if you are trying to find out how Russian kids adapt their hardware to the Russian grammar, and English kids adapt their hardware to English grammar, which happens. I mean, there are amazing things that we know. These fibers are being myelinated, are ready for use towards the 20th month of the baby's life. Okay, so exactly when syntax starts kicking in, when grammar starts kicking in. So so the question is, I mean, how do you learn those parameters? Okay, those parameters for every language. But even within every language, as I told you, we anticipate that the final parser is going to have learned parameters that will help you decide between options in cases of ambiguous sentences.
So currently, the parser is a hand-designed program, you can say, for this hardware. Is that right?
It is a hand-designed program for this hardware and for this grammar, for the grammar of English. Yeah, for the grammar of English and Russian. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Second question is from my colleague Karthik Narasimhan, who does NLP. Are the connections in these parsers predetermined, that is rule-based, or are the weights, e.g., action sets for each word's neuron, trained on supervised data?
Okay, so wonderful question. I mean, that it's a sort of it's a very different way of phrasing the previous question. I mean, how do kids learn grammar? That's an amazing question, sort of, and we have essentially decided on a neurally plausible grammar formalism, okay, unwittingly, okay, we didn't plan to, okay, so we decided to how to do this to have a running parser, and then we said, oh my God, this is a grammar, okay, so maybe we are wrong, okay, so as I told you, but we are wrong finally on the right problem, not on the shadow or the mirage of the problem. Okay, I mean, and for this I'm very grateful. Sort of, it feels completely different.
Next question by Shanyu Yao: is the assembly idea similar to distributed representation in ML, that is word embedding? So, did I understand correctly that it's binary, the representation, that a cell is either in or not in?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but I mean, it's a vector representation.
Yeah.
It's a word embedding. I mean, if you wish, our parser is lexicalized. Okay, so essentially like BERT. Okay, so that every word looks around and says, "Oh my God, what's my relationship with my environment?" Okay, so and this is encoded in our encoding is extremely simplistic. Okay, that the only encoding that goes is either random cells or cells that encode its syntactic role. Okay, so is it a transitive verb? Is it an adverb or what? Okay, so what? But yeah, in some sense, sort of, and what I'm telling you, that I want to do next is essentially to train it for attention, sort of, for the surrounding words. Okay, I am not sure that you need to train it for the surrounding words so much as for the part of speech of the surrounding words. Okay, so that's our first goal, that I believe it's going to produce a good a fine parser.
Okay, thanks. Next question from Akash Gaonkar. Could you say more about what it means to evaluate a parser of this kind? Is the goal to be as close to human timing as possible? He says he's not sure if correctly parsing every valid or commonly understood sentence is even possible. So do you have some kind of a correctness on the parser?
I mean, we we want, I mean, it's already sort of hard enough, sort of, to produce parsers for simple sentences, okay, by this method, in this hardware and software, okay. But we do so we have an experiment with I believe 200 sentences. And not one failure. Okay, so they are in about a dozen restricted classes of sentences, but they include recursion and things like that. Okay, so but I mean, indeed, I mean, they are hand designed. The parts of speech, the language is designed.
And I guess you have the world expert on parsing on the team. Mike Collins.
That's right. Yes, I mean, so frankly, the whole the big effort was not to listen to him too much. Okay, right? I mean, because you have to look at the hardware you have and the software you have more.
Next question, Dave Zhao. How would learning work for the assembly calculus? Would it use backpropagation in SGD or some other technique?
I see. Not really. Okay, so so we are doing. Okay, so we have actually a paper in submission with Santos Vempala on how to learn assemblies. Okay, so and basically, I mean, imagine you have a distribution of assemblies. What kind of distributions can you classify? Okay, so we can classify we can do the baby steps of learning theory. Okay, we can classify well-separated Gaussians. We can classify hyperplanes. Okay, so that's half spaces. So, but I mean, I think the real question, which is further down the road for us, is how do you interface the assembly calculus with the learning apparatus of the brain? Because I mean, for example, the parser needs this. Okay, so because the classifier is not going to be done by the assembly calculus. Okay, so it's going to be done by the Bayesian apparatus of the brain, and you have to find a way to interface with that. Okay, and this is sort of what consumers are thought in this direction now.
So since the question was about SGD and backpropagation, is it true that the learning mechanism, the primary learning mechanism in your framework is something Hebbian, that two things that fire simultaneously set up a connection?
It's not, I should have said this first. It's not stochastic gradient descent. Okay, it's more how should I say? It's more it's more like perceptron type of operation.
I see. Yeah, perceptron is could be also involved backpropagation, but is it just Hebbian? Is that correct?
It's only Hebbian. Yeah. Only Hebbian.
Okay. Natalia Chiolina asks, do you think your approach could be correlated with Chomsky's minimalist approach to syntax through the merge operation and then the universal grammar?
Okay, so I mean, I don't want to take sides and irritate people or break hearts, but I'll tell you what, I've been a student, I've been studying Chomsky, we were influenced, my choice of the merge operation is influenced by Chomsky. So, some of the neuroscientists and cognitive scientists doing experiments with language are influenced by Chomsky. So hence the merge operation. The parser is sort of agnostic, very agnostic. So, we don't, I believe, but my co-authors didn't want to include it in this draft, that you can have a Chomskyan side effect. That what happens is that a tree is being constructed. It's not just a dependency graph, but a tree is being constructed at Broca's area. As the astute among you have noticed, our parser does not involve Broca's area. Okay, so so it does not involve merge. Okay, so it all involves dependency correlations between words.
Okay, next question. By the way, I wanted to let the audience know, I see some raised hands and so on. I'm not, I'm only able to read your questions that are submitted to the Q&A box. So please enter your questions there. Next question, Justinian Roska. Does the brain areas and fiber assemblies architecture support the language instinct hypothesis of Pinsker in any way? I mean,
so frankly, I have read Pinker, but that was 15 years ago. I don't know what the language instinct except for a catchy title. I mean, it's undeniable that all kids learn language unless they have some anatomical problem. That a Japanese kid raised in London will speak with Oxbridge accent English, sort of, you know, and so there is some universality. There is some inherent ability of people to learn language for a few years. And this is an incredible mystery, okay? Sort of, you know, and what I'm saying is that you know, maybe what we are doing, sort of, you know, the assembly calculus opens up interesting ways to explore it, okay, to press it further, okay? So, you know, not, you know, it's I'm sure we're going to fall on our face, okay, you know, but the point is, as I said before, you are being defeated by the true beast, okay, not by a surrogate, okay.
Okay, next question from Akash Gaonkar. Is there a notion of compilation from a programming language to the assembly calculus? Perhaps to test those high-level brain models you mentioned at the start of the talk. You seem to imply some kind of a Turing universality, almost, right?
So
like
there is a Turing universality, but sort of, you know, I don't want to settle on this proof at all. Sort of, you know, because it's a curious program that goes through a Turing tape, okay? So, you know, Turing machine tape. It's not, you know, I don't think the brain works this way. So, I mean, I think you are asking a wonderful question, which is so we have one mode of operating, which is sort of, you know, merge and creation of assemblies, okay? So in some sense, it's very much like combinatory logic, if you wish, okay? So, you know, if anything, all right? I mean, so it's, you know, it creates structures. There is a different way of operating, which is through association and probabilistic means, okay? That's something that we have not explored, okay? And we know that the first one we can harness to get Turing completeness. But to tell you the truth, your question about how do you translate from a cognitive language, okay, so, you know, to the assembly calculus is not clear at
all. Next question. They interpreted is from an anonymous attendee that assemblies are kind of implemented as hardware. That was your description. Are there hints or evidence of software being run in the brain, like, for instance, code interpreters?
What can I tell you?
I guess it's Turing complete, so you could run that.
Yeah, you know, so I mean, you know, you can't do that. You can't do that. I believe that the reality of the brain is very different from any code anybody would. But I mean, you know, cognitive scientists do probabilistic programming. Okay, that's a big trend, and I'm looking forward. So actually, I'm talking to one of the exponents of this trend. You know, what can you translate? So this is something that is definitely on our radar. This question about translating.
Okay, one more question. Edwin Williams, how does a parser react to ungrammatical strings?
Yeah, so that's what grammaticality. That's what I meant by grammaticality. So you know that trickier than language is grammaticality. Okay, how can you hear a sentence and say no, that does sound like right English? Okay, you know, so and of course sort of flops like this. Okay, so what our parser does is it says you know, it screams. Okay, it says no good. This is not a sentence. But you can, I mean, the truth of the matter is, you can still, you can give it, these are things that you can fix. But there are many ways that you can give it things that, omit articles and things like that. So that are not sentences, and say, okay, that's a sentence. Okay, so but these are very easy to fix. But yes, I mean, that's a big part. That we know that the brain screams. Has huge, emits big potentials if you tell it an ungrammatical sentence. Okay, and our parser also, and and it does so in what they call the 400N. Okay, the 400 milliseconds. I mean, I don't know. Our parser probably does it about that time.
A question from Rob Fish. Is there any connection between the visual comprehension of action, like seeing a boy hitting a ball, and the comprehension of the sentence "boy hit the ball"?
I mean, wonderful question. I mean, of course, language, I mean, or even for abstract ideas, is translated into images in our brain, okay? And images are translated into language automatically. I mean, this is I mean, in any, if you look at what happened, I mean, what the language apparatus, what it was doing in the chimps, okay, it was basically the motor cortex and related brain areas, okay. So there is a lot of and there are mirror cells there. There are similar, like there is a word in the lexicon, and the same word is an object of a sentence. You have you have mirror cells in the motor area where when you see somebody throw a rock, you have the feeling that you could be doing the same thing, and so on. So this is I mean, yes, the connection between language and visualization is, and also especially in the discourse level, not the sentence level so much, as much as in the discourse level, many sentences, dialogues, and so on, is very, and it's being explored, is very important.
Okay, last question, and then we'll probably stop. So I think it's asking, how would the parser account for finer grained syntax patterns like adjective order, collocation, etc.? I guess it's just a proof of concept. It's not like a
we have
best parser in the world. Or something.
We have we have a proof of concept. Now of the two problems you are telling me. Adjective order. I mean, you know what adjective order means. I mean, it means that there are no green little men. There are only little green men. Okay, so because green has to go after little. Okay, and I mean, I gave you an example where it said something like old little white car. That's an okay order, right? I mean, so there is the grammaticality judgment of these orders, okay? And green little man sounds wrong, okay? So so this you can handle. I mean, I believe that this you can handle by having a finer classification of adjectives. But okay, collocations would require more work. Okay, so I mean, many of these things we know how to extend, but we only have 2 hands and 3 days to Friday or something. Okay, that's.
Okay, well, thanks very much.
It was fantastic.
It was an amazing talk.
It was great to be in touch with all of you, and wonderful, and thanks. And thanks, Sanjeev, for hosting me. Thanks, Emily.
And I want to announce to the 60 people still left that Christos is available for one-on-one conversations on Tuesday. and you can send me mail. Well, if you're in the CS department, you should be able to sign up. Otherwise, you have to send me email. Okay. Thanks again, Christos.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.